like, oh, can you get that pipe out of the glove box, you know?
Yep.
And I like opened the glove box, boom. I said, what the fuck? What's this for, you know? Like, I thought it was a ganja pipe, bro.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, it's for ice. And then when he said ice, I thought he was talking about like servo from the service station. I was like, what? Yeah. Like, and then he ended up like blazing it up. And I was like, what the fuck does that do, you know? He's like, here, have one, you know? Like, I was like, nah, I'm not going to have one. He's like, nah, it only in your system for 2 days. Oh, really? He's like, yeah. And I was like, boom, the first time I had that toke, like, I'm telling you now, like, the next 11, 12 years is just a blur, bro. Like,
yep. Yeah, same, bro.
Yeah, and like, you know, before you knew it, I was in prison, you know, serving 10.5 years for an attempted murder charge I didn't do, with a face and head full of tattoos I didn't even pretty much knew I got. Yep. You know what I mean? And labelled or a thug or a gangster, you know. But like, I'll just be straight out now. I was never a gangster, you know. I was never a thug. Oh, you know what I was? I was just an alcoholic junkie that grew up on the streets, punching on, and made a name for myself that way in the NT and South Australia, you know what I mean?
Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Tonksy Media Podcast. Tonight we're joined by a former guest. He was on in Season 1, Episode 20. Shannon Althouse, welcome, brother.
No worries, thank you.
So, bro, what brings you up here to the Goldie?
Yeah, no, I thought, you know, like I'd come and catch up with you, and, you know, it's been a long time in the making, you know, we've been speaking about it for a little while now, and, yeah, just to come in and do this podcast, have a chat about, you know, some people that are close to us that we've lost, and, you know, even a couple other issues in it that have been popping up lately around Australia and NT, and, just get a bit of exposure out for that.
100%, bro. While we're on that topic, let's talk about that video that you put out recently. And we did a video on it today, actually, but talking about junkies and adults giving kids drugs, bro.
Junkies giving kids drugs, methamphetamine, anything, part 2. So this message here, I'm targeting those drug addicts, drug dealers here in the Northern Territory, especially here in the Northern Territory, because I live in the Northern Territory, that are giving illicit drugs, heavy drugs, to underage girls to get them to perform indecent acts upon them. And now, if I find out who you are, I'm telling you right now, you're on notice, and, you know, you know me really well, you know, here in the Northern Territory. Everybody knows me in the Northern Territory. You're going to be in trouble, put it that way. So what I'm telling you right now is that I'm putting every single one of you on notice. If I find out that anyone out there is giving kids methamphetamine or heavy drugs, whatever, weed, whatever, to perform any act on them or for their mates or anything like that, that is indecent or anything like that, or stupid crime or anything like that, I will find out about it, and guess what? You will get in trouble. I'm pretty sure I've proven that in the past. And like I said, I'm from the NT, I live in the NT, and I just did nearly 10 years in jail, right? So don't think that because I'm on the straight track and I'm doing good and no longer a part of that life, that I won't find out about you shit people out there and what yous are up to and who yous really are. And when I do, I'm telling you right now, yous are going to be in a lot of trouble. So this message out here is for yous just to pull your fucking heads in right now and clean your acts up and stop doing this shit, because I've had enough of it. Everybody else has had enough of it. The parents of these kids had enough of it. The family of these kids, their friends of these kids have had enough of it. And by the looks of it, I'm the only one here in the NT at the moment that isn't locked up, that has the balls to fucking call you out on it and stand up for it. So, and it's simple as that. You've got a problem with it, message me. I walk around these streets by myself. Approach me, have a crack, whatever. You know what I mean? Or we could even one step better, but, you know, like, we'll do it legally. We'll set up a boxing match, whatever like that. I got brother from Aussie Promoter there on Instagram. You know, there's plenty of clubs here in the NT that will sort it out and organise it and give you a solid 3 months, whatever like that, to train up, get fit, etc., do whatever. And then we'll slug it out. Simple as that. But like I said, I'm calling you out. If I find out,
Fill us in on the background to that video that you did.
No. So the whole purpose of that video is obviously it's happening all over Australia, around the world, and that too now, and it's just becoming more and more acceptable by the looks of it. And after doing all them years in jail and that, and I've seen it just happening in there all the time too now. And, you know, like people did get got and stuff like that, but you know, like they're just not even caring and stuff like that. And it's just, and what I found too is just not just junkies and dealers and that are doing it too. You know, like there's, you know, there's other people and stuff like that that aren't even dealing drugs and that are doing that exact thing to getting young men and young women, especially the young women, underage, getting them on the methamphetamine and weed, whatever like that, and getting them to do indecent acts and stuff like that. You know, like,
it's fucked, bro. It really is. You know, and that video actually blew up a bit. You know, and so it should have. You know, like I said to you earlier today, me being, you know, a father of 3 daughters myself, like, it needs to fucking stop, bro, you know, and because it's growing bigger and bigger, you know, the kids are getting younger and younger getting on drugs these days, you know, and there are different types of drugs that are around these days as well, you know. It's like, yeah, it's just, I congratulate you on putting something like that out, bro, especially, you know, over there, no one else has got the balls to sort of pull these cunts up on it, and you're doing it, so.
No, that's exactly right. And you know what, it's gone viral, you know what I mean? Like, it's blowing up in WA, South Australia, New South Wales, Queensland, about that exact reason, because no one's done it before, no one's even, you know, like it's kind of like a no-go zone for a lot of people. I don't know if they're frightened or something like that, repercussions from what could possibly happen, you know, about like exposing them or calling them out, you know.
Yeah.
There's some of them are dangerous too, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, you know, but, you know, it's me, to be honest, I couldn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
I'll call them out, bro, and if they want to have a crack, you know, like I said, you know, I got the brother at Aussie Promoter there, you know, shout out to him. He's keen to promote it all and set stuff up, you know, like if they ever got an issue, and, you know, well, we could, that way, because I know not only that they're doing this to kids and that, like, these are the type of people too, like if you used to go and do something on the streets or at the house, whatever like that, they're that much of a maggot, they'll probably run straight to the police and charge you with assault and stuff like that too. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%, bro. It's definitely a good thing what you're doing, that's for sure, you know. It's, like I said, it needs to fucking stop, bro. Like, you know, back, you know, when I was a kid, bro, it was the opposite, you know. You couldn't, even if you tried to go and get a tenner or something off, you know, your buddy's old man or something like that, like a bit of weed or something, it was a no-go, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't until you're up around 16, 17, 18 that, you know, these days it's just, and especially with ice, bro, you know, as you know, for people that don't know Shannon, so Shannon, if you want to learn more about him, he's done his full life story on episode 1, on season 1, episode 20, I think it was, bro.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
This podcast ain't going to be based around that. It's more so... Righto, mate. It's more so going to be based around the recent loss, bro, of the brother Chase. Now, Chase was also a former guest in season 1, but he's unfortunately passed away there recently, bro. Do you want to talk a little bit about him?
No, like Chase was, you know, a really close brother of mine, and you know, had a beautiful soul, beautiful heart. You know, he had his demons and that too, you know, but you know, he'd always put other people's feelings in there first before his own, you know. So, you know, give his shirt off his back, you know, always had your back no matter what, you know, like, you know, it was just a good soul, and it's about raising awareness, you know, trying to get people to speak up, and, you know, if they're struggling or going through any kind of pain or thoughts or stuff like that they want to end their lives or things like that, you know what I mean? It's important that you reach out and speak to someone close, you know, and a big thing is too, bro, like alcohol and drugs too, you know, how it affects your mind and your judgment, and you, like, that there, like being under the influence and that when you're in those states of depression or whatever like that, or suicidal thoughts, whatever, that could be the difference between you taking your life and you not, you know what I mean?
Definitely, bro. And me being somebody that's fucking witnessed it firsthand, the whole psychosis type thing, that's sort of the lines you're going along, eh?
Yeah.
And people don't realise, I did a podcast recently with the bro K Fit, and we spoke about, and it's something I've never really spoken about, is the depth of psychosis, bro. Drug-induced psychosis. It's so fucking real, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's, it might be the most fucked up thing happening in your head. Like, you might be seeing the most fucked up thing to somebody, some person that's not intoxicated or not under the influence of anything. You'd think, what the fuck? You're off your head.
Yeah.
But when you're in that fucking zone, bro, it's real. No one can tell you different. Do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I've been there,
Yeah.
It's that real, like you everybody else is against you, and like they think that you're going mad, but you think they're just setting you up. You know what I mean?
Yep. Like, everything's a setup, bro.
Yeah,
I swear,
100%.
cops fucking, and it's like,
yeah, that's exactly right. I've been there. Like I was an addict for over 10 years. All up drug and alcohol. For a couple of decades. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I've been clean and sober 9 years now. So I know 100% how hard it is to get off it, and what it does to you while you're on it.
Yep.
And like especially when you actually truly sober up, and like when you're clean and sober for as long as you have, like I've been.
Yep.
And you look back at it.
Yeah.
You see, bro. Like you can actually see like yourself again then, and you'll be like, far out, I was a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I really was hallucinating. I was, and telling stories and seeing things that weren't there, and like, fuck, my family, my poor family, or friends, like,
definitely, bro, 100%. It's 100%. So going back to Chase, bro, talk us through. I was honoured enough to have met the bloke. It was only through a video call, but I kind of felt like, I had that good chat with him. I kind of felt like I sort of got to know him a little bit just through that, and but talk us through. How you've met, and because you were a big part in his life, and likewise, so talk us through from sort of the beginning, bro.
No, so we actually met when we were a lot younger, like teenage days and that, around Karama and Malak area, so, but I got sent down to Adelaide, because I was obviously up to no good as a youngin, 13, 14, 15, thieving, stealing cars, you're doing the stuff that kids are doing today. So my uncle came down and grabbed me and took me down to Adelaide. And
you do talk about that in the first episode we did.
Yeah. So so what happened there, and then when I come back later on down the track, and then I bumped into Chase again, and we just kicked off again. We actually bumped back into him in Berrima, in the old Berrima jail, Yeah. So, and we hadn't even seen each other, and it would have been over a decade, I reckon.
Yep.
But yeah, it was nothing but love, bro. Like he had he was always a little stress head, I mean, or not a little, he was huge, you know what I mean? Yeah, he's a big boy, but he's like I said, he's always like in his head, but he loved to have a good laugh, how to do his little dance moves and stuff like that, wear his little bright colours, pink and stuff, he's the one that actually got me into wearing all the bright stuff, so yeah, no, he was a good. He was a good man. He really was. Yeah.
Yeah. So you done a bit of jail and that with him, bro. Like, talk about what he was like and that in there.
Yeah. So, we done a bit of jail together, and that was the best times too. Like that, we even knew each other because both of us were sober. We've been sober for years then too. So, I remember we did a bit of time in Berrima and then Holtz in 2016, and like I got transferred to Alice Springs.
Yep.
And then just out of nowhere, I remember one of our mates saying, "Oh, Chase has been transferred to Alice Springs," and another brother of ours, China. So when they come down, like I was like, "Oh, get him a job out here," and then so we got him a job at engineering with us, bro, and in the block with us, man, and we did a few years there in Alice together, and like who your real brothers and all that are inside too, what I mean? Like, especially the ones that you meet inside. And he was one of those brothers that what he said he was going to do, he done.
Yep.
And plus more, you know what I mean? So I heard that many people inside of prison and all that, like when they get out, we're going to do this, we're going to chuck money in your account, we're going to go help you with this or do this or that. No, never hear from them again until they come back in, you know, coming down. But he was different.
Yep. He was real.
Yeah, like, you'd be like, nah, it's all right, brother, it's all right. Nah. And then boom, he got out, you know, like, and before you know it, there's shoes put in your prison property, you know what I mean? And there's you know, like, you had hundreds put in your account, and, you know, like, for the PDS systems and buy-ups and that, you know, like, letters and photos, bro, bulk photos. He sent in. As soon as he got out, I think he sent me like 3 photo albums. Like, of him and his family at the bless his family too. Like, mad love for them all. His mum and his dad and his brothers and that, and his partner there, Sarah, and, you know, he sent me photos of all their Christmas party, you know, and it was the biggest feed up, you know. He's like, brother, as soon as when you get out, you know, you'll come into ours for a Christmas party, you know. I was like, mad, bro. Like, mad,
yeah. And did it happen?
It hasn't yet.
Yeah.
Because, you know, unfortunately, the tragedy that happened, you know, before we could have that Christmas party, you know, but, you know, it's still in the cards, you know. I'll still go there and have a Christmas party with all the family up there.
Yeah, definitely, bro, you know. And you since you've just been here on the Gold Coast, you have spoken so highly of his family and things like that, you know. It was an absolute tragedy, bro.
Yeah, it was like, it's just random, like, just straight out of the blue. Like, I remember in jail, bro, like, people used to, because it's a hard place, you know what I mean, and a lot of depression, bro. Like, the place is just full of depressed people, you know what I mean.
Yep.
And got their struggles and that from the inside and out. And if anyone in prison ever said that they were going to neck themselves or commit suicide in front of Chase, brother, he'd be the first to pull them up, you know what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, it was kind of left wing for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I still remember when I first heard about it, I was at work, bro.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe it. I got real wild, you know, when my brother, he's like, "Oh, have you heard about Brother Chase?" You know, and I was like, what are you on about, you know?
Yeah.
And because I was due to go up to Darwin 2 weeks after, and every time I go up to Darwin, you know, I used to send like, or put a photo up on my Instagram and that of me and Chase and tag him in it, you know?
Yep.
I'd be like, I'll be up there on this day, brother. You know, we're catching up for a big feed. Yeah, no worries. And we'd share it, you know, and we just joke around with each other, you know, take the piss out of each other, you know. It was it was too funny, you know. It was like that, you know. But yeah, and then I found out, man, I didn't believe it, you know. I messaged his partner there, you know.
Yep.
Poor thing, Sarah, you know, she's a beautiful girl, and she confirmed it, you know what I mean. So that was just shattering, bro. Like
Yeah, I remember. I think I touched base with you maybe a few days after it, and because I'd heard the news too, and I actually I seen shit posted and that, and I remember you were the first one I contacted. Like, is it fucking true, bro? Like, you know, but it was just, you know, it's my heart goes out still, bro, to you know, his whole family, extended family, everyone that knew him, you know, definitely, like, you know, like on that note too, you know, the brother Danny Lloyd and Jordan Lockerbie of Inside Out Coach, and they're a major sponsor to the podcast, and you know, we'll be getting Danny on there shortly, but you know, if it wasn't for him, bro, I would never have ever, like, we probably wouldn't have linked up with you, and with Chase first, and then you afterwards, but you know, it was like, it was, so I'd just gone down and spent a week down there with those fellas in Adelaide, and I think it was like a week after I got back it happened.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of, pretty shattering and whatnot. But, so it was definitely a big shock, bro, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember I introduced him to Danny because Danny was coming and visiting me for the Crystal Clear program, you know. So he was running that, him and Dion. And I said, I've got this other brother here from Darwin, you know, like, you know, he needs to do these programs to get parole, but he's, you know, like he's had enough of that stuff too, you know.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, yeah, what's his name? I was like, yeah, Chase Atkinson, you know, like, yeah, no worries. And then I linked him up with Danny, you know, and I still remember when they're like, yeah, you got to go to Dassett or rehab. I'm not fucking doing rehab. Yeah, I just did 4 years in prison, you know. That's my rehab, you know. Like,
yeah.
And I reckon he knocked parole back at like 2-3 times, right? And I had to convince him, like, I was like, bruh, like, just fuck off, you know. You're annoying me now. Get out, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everywhere, you know. But and then when he went in, you know, he got put in there, and he ended up sending his number in, and I put on the PDS, you know. As soon as I called him, he's like, bro, as soon as as soon as you're out for parole, just put it in the coming. That's me in here. Yeah, I was laughing. I said, I told you, dickhead. Like, you knocked it back for like 4 or 5 months, you know?
Yeah. I wish you had done it earlier, for sure.
Yeah.
Unreal, man. So, you know, going back to the drugs and shit, bro, you know, talk us through a little bit of your experiences on it, you know, and sort of how it damaged you as a person, and, you know, even run us through a couple of the, you know, fucking crazy stories even when you're on it. We didn't really touch on that in the first podcast. So, I mean, it's not really a great subject, but it's intriguing to a lot of people, you know what I mean? Especially even current addicts. And shit, you know. So talk us through, you know, about a couple of your stories on it. Yeah,
well, 100%, man. Like, well, you know, like, it all started, you know, like in my younger days, you know, it all started with just a drink and the weed and stuff like that. And it wasn't until, you know, my early 20s when I actually got hooked on the meth and eckies and coke and stuff like that, you know, like, you know, just experimenting with all of it. You know, it was the coke and the eckies, and it wasn't too bad. Like, I could take them and then not take them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, same. Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I'd take them when I want, and then I could not take them for months, you know, and then, it's a party here, I'll just have a couple here and there, you know. But it wasn't until, I came back and up to Darwin and caught up with a couple mates and an old brother, and, he's like, oh, can you get that pipe out of the glove box, you know?
Yep.
And I, like, opened the glove box, boom. I was like, what the fuck? What's this for, you know? Like, I thought it was a ganja pipe, bro.
yeah.
He's like, nah, it's for ice. And then when he said ice, I thought he was talking about, like, servo from the service station ice, bro. I was like, what? Yeah. Like, and then he ended up, like, blazing it up. And I was like, what the fuck does that do, you know? He's like, here, have one, you know? Like, I was like, nah, I'm not going to have one. He's like, nah, it only in your system for 2 days. Oh, really? He's like, yeah. And I was like, boom, the first time I had that toke, like, I'm telling you now, like, the next 11, 12 years is just a blur, bro. Like,
same, bro.
And, like, you know, before you knew it, I was in prison, you know, serving 10.5 years for an attempted murder charge I didn't do, with a face and head full of tattoos I didn't even pretty much knew I got. You know what I mean? And labelled or a thug or a gangster, you know. But like, I'll just be straight out now. I was never a gangster, you know. I was never a thug. Oh, you know what I was? I was just an alcoholic junkie that grew up on the streets, punching on, and made a name for myself that way in the NT and South Australia, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
Yeah,
bro, that's all you are. You know, you think you're bulletproof on it, and, you know, you think you're all this and that, especially when you're dealing in it and shit, and, you know, and you've got the money and the cars and the gold chains and this and that, and you think you're fucking king shit on it, bro, you know. But then you look at it, you look back on cunts that are doing that these days, now we're sober, and it's like, fuck me, that was me.
Yeah.
You know, how embarrassing. Like,
yeah, and like, just the look, bro. The look of you is just disgusting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, the sores, the huge weight loss, you know what I mean? Like,
how did you go with it? Did you strip the weight?
Bro, I lost like 30-something kilo like that, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, you know, I went from like 115 kilo to like 86 kilo in no time, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and like, it just, in your head, bro, like in my head, I thought I looked like wicked, bro. I was like, oh yeah, I'm skinny, I'm like fit as, you know, lean as, you know, but when I actually sobered up, like properly sobered up, and then I seen photos and that from me when I was that stage to photos when I was actually healthy, like far out, man. I was like, but I couldn't see myself like that when I was on it, you know. I was thinking far out, like, did I really look like that? That's disgusting, you know. I was thinking far out, you know. Thank God I'm, you know, clean and sober. Yeah, I have been for like 9 years now. Going on 10, you know. I'll never go back there, bro. I'm telling you.
Fuck no, bro. You know, unfortunately, I did there recently. You know, I did a good 4 or 5 months back on it, and you know, you can blame all this and that. At the end of the day, it's my own choice, but I did have a bit going on and whatnot, and I used that as an excuse, obviously, to escape it. But you know, I was like, you know, feel honoured to have blokes like yourself and Morgs and you know, Danny Shannon was trying to get me into a rehab and shit, bro, you know, and Glenn Fisher, all these cunts reached out to me, you know, and like, I just blew yous all off, bro, you know. Yeah, I'm going to do this, going to do that. As soon as I hung up the phone, brother, was back into it, you know, and But like I said to you earlier, I feel like it was, I don't know, like a bit of a, like it almost needed to happen again, if that makes sense. It probably sounds fucked, but it was like that last wake-up call that I needed, you know, like, I definitely didn't need it, but I'm sort of glad it happened in a way because it's shaped my whole outlook on everything again, if you know what I mean. Like, it's in a good way, like. But yeah, it is what it is, you know. I'm glad to be sober again, bro. I think I'm nearly 6 months again or something, but yeah, man, it's a lethal, dirty, fucking life-ruining, home-wrecking kind of a drug, bro.
Oh, it is. It really is. And you know what? Like, in Alice Springs, especially around Alice Springs and that too, like, you're starting to, like, it's just out in the open now all the time, bro. It never used to be like that.
No.
And now it's just, like, that disgusting, like, and people are leaving needles out in the ground. Like, if you want to shoot up and stuff like that, like, dispose of it properly, man.
Exactly.
Like, because kids in that walk through those parks, I've seen it in a church. Bro, 1 million. Like, that's disgusting. Like, you know, like
in the church, bro. Like,
I remember there's a story. I'll tell you a story about that a junkie that we seen. This is 2016. I was on the gear myself, you know, but I never shot. I was on the pipe, you know.
Yep.
And I was walking back from the shops in Palmerston, bro. And as I was walking, I seen this other fella walking towards me, you know. And this is only like 11 o'clock in the morning. And as I got closer to him, I seen him throw something, like, to the right, you know. And it was in my yard. And I thought, what's that, you know? Like, and as I got closer, and I got kids, like, not my kids, like, but all my nephews and nieces and everyone used to come over there all the time. And when I walked into my yard, I seen a dirty 1 mil on the ground. And I caught him back over, bro, and I just pummeled this. Well, I pumped him, bro. Like, I was like, yeah. And then, lucky my next door neighbour, that was a nephew. She come running out, this old lady. No, what's going on? And I picked it up, bro. I was about to stab him with it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, 100%. Oh, it made me wild, you know, because if one of my nephews and that stood on that.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
she's like, no, leave it. I'll deal with him. That's my nephew, you know. Yeah, so she just picked him up and took him, you know. And she went off on him. I could hear her abusing him and stuff, you know.
Yeah. Just goes to show, doesn't it? You know, I was walking across the road here the other day, bro, and there's one in the gutter with no cap on it and that. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's... Fuck, when I was a kid, bro, you know, my old man wouldn't even let us wear fucking, like, flip-flops at the beach, bro. It's like, nah, fucking dirty needles, you know. My old boy was, and I appreciate him for being like that too, was overreactive about it, you know, about dirty needles, this and that. But, yeah, you know, if it wasn't fucking... Yeah, I don't know. It's just, like you said, bro, if you're going to do it, fucking do it behind closed doors and dispose of it right, eh?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, you know, like, just dispose of those, your needles, whatever like that, in the proper disposal. Like, you can go to the exchange place, whatever they are, and you can get them, bro. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep, 100%, bro. I've been there and done it, you know what I mean? Like, we're joined by... the brother Danny Lloyd from Inside Out Coaching. They're a major sponsor to the podcast. And funnily enough, the bloke that linked us up, bro. How are you, Danny?
Yeah, I'm good, brothers. What's happening?
Nah, not a great deal, bro. Just midway through a podcast, mate. But we thought we'd get you on. You know, obviously you're the one that you know, linked me up with Shannon and brother Chase as well. So we just thought it'd only be right to get you on and join the podcast with us, bro, and have a bit of a yarn, you know, in a bit of memory of Chase, and yeah, bro, we'll start it off by fill us in a bit on, you know, how you and Shannon met for starters, bro.
So I think it was around about 2017, end of 2017. We'd opened this non-clinical outreach program addressing people that suffered with crystal meth. And we ended up kind of blowing up outside of that to try and get inside the prisons, inside the courtrooms, because what we were trying to achieve was to help the Northern Territory justice system understand that addiction wasn't a choice. It was a pain response, and people didn't understand this. And it led us to end up starting working inside the prisons. And there was a lady in there that I was very close with that was part of sentence management. And she was like she was an Alice Springs kind of person that's grown up there. And I got this identity, I guess, through the justice system of the person that always helped the people that apparently couldn't be reached, couldn't be helped, whatever, which is how they framed things. And a lot of the time, people like in the system, like Shannon and Chase, just because of their past affiliations and that, they were mistreated and they were misguided and ignored for the support they needed. And so this lady, Shona, was very good at caring still compared to the rest of the system at the time. And so she asked me if I would meet with Shannon. And I remember the first time we kind of met and sat in the room there, the visiting room, and we were chatting for a bit. And I remember saying to Shannon, like, which is so mad when I think about what he's gone on to do now. I remember saying to him, like, if we could remove these walls, your sentence, and you could walk out of here tomorrow, and you could dream again, and you could do whatever you wanted to do in your life without this hanging over your head and the past being the past, what would you do? And he looked me straight in the eye and went, I'd be the person I needed when I was growing up. And the conversation from there led on, and he talked about his dream of kind of having a youth program or something to help with the youth one day. And from there, you know, obviously we just kept catching up, and I'd go in and visit, and I was trying my best where I could to advocate for Shannon, because he had some really bad injuries from what happened before he came in. Like, as in, these injuries would have probably killed a lesser man, and he was having to live his life in custody inside the prison there with a lot of serious physical injuries that no one was helping him with. Like, he couldn't sleep for a lot of it with the injuries he'd sustained before coming in when he got mowed into that wall with the car. And so I tried my best where I could to advocate and step in and support him and try and get him the support and help he needed. And you know, I got into quite a lot of trouble in the prison for doing this for people like Brother Shannon and Brother Chase and others. But I didn't really care, because I'm like, these are human beings. Like, I don't care what they did. That's their past. They've been sentenced. They're in here. They've been sentenced for whatever it is that's gone on. Right? They're paying their dues. Like, they're still human beings, and they deserve to be treated as such and helped.
100%.
And as I got to know Shannon over the period of time and his story and what happened to him kind of growing up as a young fellow was very confronting. And it made a lot of sense why he sought brotherhood or safety in what ended up becoming part of the motorcycle club, right? And of course, going into that, when you're young and you're just trying to find somewhere where you belong and you can have family or a brotherhood or something, it's very easy to then be sucked into the rest, which happens. But on the upside, that conversation we first had when we met, look what he's gone on to achieve now and what he's created. He basically has created exactly what was in his mind's eye, which was his love for young people and helping them. And now between him and Lloydie and Aaron Boxing and then his own brand with what Shannon does, like he's doing it. And it's just so beautiful to watch.
100%, bro. And what do you have to take off that, Shannon? Like, can you remember the first day you met Danny and stuff? Like,
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, I remember all that, everything he said, even the part when he got in trouble. Yeah, yeah, it was a bit. I remember that's when I got transferred back to Darwin, you know, and it was a bit hairy, you know what I mean, because I knew that I'll be put in another position where I'll be tested again, with how not to punch on, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I was doing killing it, kicking goals. And I kind of got messed around by the psychologist in there too, you know, with a intense violent offenders program that I had to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
that woman, wow, that woman.
Yeah, so she ended up getting fired that point. Yeah. So, but she just kept delaying my progress, you know, and kept delaying it. Like I was supposed to do I think it was a 6-week program because it was a one-on-one. It took me about 9 months. 12 months came past and I just ended up walking out. Then I was like, nah, it's, you know, like I did it like the hours I did in that program was just a one-on-one. It was like the same hours as if a group session in prison had done it 3 times.
Yeah, wow, bro.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that. And interestingly enough, so because of the so basically, and I don't know, Shannon will probably remember this. So I was hooked up at the time with this. They call them silks, which is like really high up lawyers in like supreme, like beyond Supreme Courts. They got like the full dress and all that, but they're like the top in the country. And I knew this lady who was a human rights lawyer. I don't know if you remember this, Shannon, and I was talking to this human rights lawyer about the violation of human rights Shannon was being put through on a daily basis. And I explained to her as well, on top of that, that since I'd met Shannon, he basically was working with me and Dion in our program. Like, he'd turn up when we catch up, me and Dion, with Shannon, and he'd say, "There's a new young fella in here. I think he needs your help." And so he'd basically refer us someone else. We'd speak to Shona. We'd get hooked up with the person. And then from that point, we'd be in there helping the person get out and maybe get their life back on track. And Shannon would be in there talking to us about kind of keeping him away from all the drama. And so Shannon was basically mentoring all these younger people in our program that he'd referred to us the whole time he was in there. While he was dealing with all the stuff they were doing at him, he was focused on other people, looking after them. And I explained this to this human rights lawyer, and she was trying to get basically a big investigation launched. And do you remember, Shannon, the timing of that? And then they transferred you to Darwin?
Yeah, no, I definitely remember all that, like in still the process is actually, what I mean, like of me, like I haven't forgot about them and what they did, like especially like I said, like I had to plead guilty for a crime I didn't commit under the Northern Territory Mandatory Sentencing Acts, because if I didn't, I would have got life in prison. So the only way I could avoid that was by pleading guilty, and got a 10.5-year stint for that, you know what I mean? Which was like, even my lawyer and even I knew 100% that there's no way in the world, no matter which state or territory I was in, that I would find any jury that would find me not guilty of having knowledge of the crime that had been committed at the time.
Yep.
That I wouldn't have had any knowledge of it, you know? And I knew that, because there's obviously my associates and the people I was surrounded with, there's, I put myself in that position. That's why instead of like, I took the rap, pled guilty, did the time, but it was when I was doing the time, like I could have just rebelled and hated life, hated corrections, hated police, hated everybody, and thought, oh, well, fuck this. I'm just going to attack everyone. I'm going to make people's lives hard. I'm going to stand over people for money when they come in, like all the dealers and stuff like that, which goes on in prison, Yeah,
100%.
So, but instead of thinking like that, I thought, nah.
Yep.
I said, like I'm going to sober up, start doing good, educate myself.
Do it the right way.
I said, I'm in here for a crime I didn't commit. I'm getting mistreated by these officers, getting mistreated by the staff. I got mistreated by the police. So I thought, I'm going to educate myself now and just build myself mentally and physically, like just stronger. So then, like I could deal and handle with it in a better way and not let it just get to me just as much, and affect
100%,
me. Yeah, just keep that clear head. Yeah. And just be really, really educated in what's going on.
And it was obviously a very crucial decision to make too, bro. You could have went either way. You could have been that fucking thug in there that, did all the wrong things and probably never got your parole or, ended up serving your parole. But obviously you took it the other way and come look at you now, you know what I mean? You're only growing, brother. Like
No, definitely, And like I said, having good people like Danny and Dion and that all the outreach mob and that came in and understood, listened to my story and believed me.
Yeah.
Where all these other people, like still today, even hierarchies of the corrections and all that, like us, oh no, like brother, I could go and give my kidney to somebody and then corrections will think that, oh, what's his motive though? Why is he doing that? Like, where is he got drugs in him or something like that? That's how they think, man. Like, like it's just stupid, Like, it's like I said, especially when I didn't even do that.
Yeah,
do what I did, do what they said I did. But it is, you know what? I copped it on the chin. I did the time, bro. I'm still doing the time. I'm on parole to 2027 over it. So, and I just, instead of dwelling on it and hating life about it, I thought, nah, stuff that. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to get ripped. I'm going to get educated. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to work. I'm going to just 7 days a week. I'm going to do all these youth programs, youth forums, youth conferences. Not just that too, like for the adults and that too. What I mean? Guest speaking and that as well, around NT and stuff. So
Yeah, unreal, bro. It's and well, clearly, bro, your face is getting familiar all around the country. It's it's an awesome thing. But talk a little bit about Chase, bro. You've given us your sort of how you met Shannon and stuff, and Chase was actually the first one that you linked me up with, bro. Talk about your experience with Chase and leading up to the tragedy of his passing and stuff, bro. And because if I can remember correctly, when I was down there in Adelaide with you guys, Chase was giving him a scholarship or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there was something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah. So which is why we now created one in his memory.
Yep.
To other people. So yeah, I always stayed in contact with Chase even after I left DASA and also just generally the Northern Territory, because I don't know, man. Like, and I know Shannon knows what I'm talking about. I know who the real Chase was. Everybody else knows the Chase they know, right? But I know the guy that had a huge heart. I know a guy that like really cared about everybody. And yeah, okay, so he was flawed, but like he was only operating off of what he'd grown up in and how he'd grown up and what he'd grown up around. And I know what I mean, what I'm saying, because I've heard his story we've talked about. And he has a beautiful son, Noah, as well, and and he had a beautiful partner, Sarah May. And so I just always felt like um it was our duty as friends to him, me and Jordan, to try and help where we could. Now Jordan didn't know him that well versus me, which is why I asked George to take the reins and support Chase professionally,
Yep.
and coach him. And then I was there personally, because I could always say things to Chase that probably other than Shannon and a couple of others you wouldn't get away with, and he'd get tempered if you said it. But I had enough respect from him where I could call him out when he needed to be called out on stuff. And he tried so hard, like when he got out of all the things that he was involved in and got out of prison and finally got off his order. Like, yeah, okay, he made some mistakes, but he tried so hard to try and live a better life. But the stuff that happened to him inside prisons, both Darwin and Alice Springs, they seriously affected him. And he was never seen as a human being by the system, as far as I'm concerned. Not even afterwards when he was on parole. They just looked at him like an animal. And like, you treat someone like an animal, then they can act like one, right? That's why a lot of these screws in the prisons, like, they need they need their heads testing. They treat inmates like animals and then they expect them to act like humans.
Yeah.
Like, that's not okay. I don't care what people have done. Like, they're in prison, so they're doing their time and they should be allowed to rehabilitate. That's the whole point, isn't it? It's a rehabilitation center, right?
Exactly right, bro.
But
It's supposed to be.
yet and still, anyway, look, Chase did everything he could to try and change and move forward. He worked a lot on his mindset and about how he dealt with things. He was so invested in like trying to better himself in his relationship and show up the best he could for Sarah May, because he had a lot of things he was insecure about, even in a relationship. And relationships are always going to bring the worst out in you until you find your best self. And that's the point of a relationship, is it's a mirror for you to deal with your shit. And he tried so hard to be the best he could for his partner, the best he could for his son. There was a lot of variables that we couldn't control and he couldn't control. And this, even after he was off his orders, they were still trying to raid his house. They were still trying to stand over him. And I think in the end, it breaks my heart still. We're still to this day, man, like we still stay in contact with Sarah May all the time and support her any way we can, as a friend, as a person, anything we can do. We do everything we can to try and still help. But, I just feel that Chase got to a point where he felt like he was more damaging living for his people that he loved than like he would have been not here. And I think he just got to a point where he couldn't see the end of how this was going to play out in a happy way. And, he took a lot of things happened in prison that changed him, especially in the recent points when he went up to Darwin, and that affected his mental in a lot of ways. And you know, unfortunately, I just don't think he could see a way out. Institutionalization, it's a horrible thing to people. But you know, I don't care what people think or they think they know of him. And some of the fuckwits I had messaging me after he passed from Alice Springs, just their little fucking just want to know the gossip, and half of them I know used to didn't even like him, and it makes me angry because people love to just gossip and know about stuff and think they know the person. But the real Chase, only a few of us really knew, and he was the kindest person you could ever ask for. And shame on shame on the Northern Territory justice system for his life being gone. Shame on them. Like, yeah, okay, he did things, but he paid his time and his dues, and now we don't have him anymore, man. He's not here.
Yeah.
And for all of his flaws, his son needs him, his partner needs him, and his community. I still think he could have done a lot for and given back to as he was maturing, because he was emotionally maturing. The more we were working with him, still afterwards, you know, and there's things I'm not going to go into, and Shannon knows what I'm talking about. This fucking psychologist, even like there's some of the shady shit that was going on in there. This is meant to be a safe space in certain levels anyway, with the professionals involved. And there was just a lot of shyster shit going on in there that was unacceptable for people like Chase to have to put up with, along with being inside a prison and managing his own anger and stuff. So, you know, shame on them. And
Yeah.
I'm never, me and Jordan kind of have never really got over him passing, and it still affects me because he was under our care. You know, we tried everything we could, but it wasn't enough, right?
I think it shook everyone, eh?
Yeah.
Like everyone that knew him, you know. Like I said, I didn't unfortunately didn't get to meet him in person, bro. But it sure as hell shook me. You know what I mean? Like, but no, I appreciate you sharing, Danny. Is there anything else you want to add on that topic, brother?
Oh, look, I feel that Chase passing just added more fuel to the fires of passion inside Shannon's heart to do what he's going on to do. And there's a lot of similarities I see in Shannon with Jeff Morgan. Like there's the same language they're speaking, their story, the self-education when they could have gone the other way in prison. And I'm just so happy to see that, you know, Shannon's creating something really special for the Northern Territory, and they need it because no one seems to give a shit about the Northern Territory. I lived there for years. The government don't
Yep.
care, right? The policies don't care. The bureaucrats don't care. The Northern Territory is the last crown jewel left in Indigenous culture, as far as I'm concerned. The desert mob, especially. There's barely any culture left like there is in the desert mob. Like, you don't understand. It's
Yeah.
mental.
Yeah.
That place changed me, and being around that culture changed me. And I'm just so glad we've still got some people flying the flag and getting to the heart of the problems like Shannon. And I feel like Chase added the fuel for Shannon to just keep elevating up and up. So I'm just really happy to see Shannon where he is, and I know where he's headed. I'll be glad when he's off his orders and he can live a free life. And you know, I'm very blessed that I got to meet him and spend some time with him and get to know his real story versus the story of all the bullshit media and everything at the time.
Awesome, bro. Thank you very much for that, brother. And anything you want to add towards that, bro?
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Danny. And yeah, just a quick note, like just another example, what you know, what kind of heart that Chase had too. You know, like I remember, I think I was in the cottages just about 18 months before I was about to get parole, and the father, the man who raised me, my old man who raised me, you know what I mean? He passed away from cancer, right? And I had to sort out a funeral escort and get a quote for it because the funeral was in Darwin. I was in Alice Springs, obviously, and like they messed me around. The ALO there, he's absolutely useless and just hates everybody, hates prisoners and stuff like that. And any funeral escorts, and I knew it was going to happen. You know, I knew he was going to try and mess with it. And I was an open security prisoner. You know, like I could jump in a prison bus and drive prisoners out into Alice Springs on paid employment scheme. And when it comes to the funeral escort, allegedly they filled out the wrong request.
Yep.
But when they come back with the quote first, they told me it's going to cost me 10 to 12 grand for this to fly up to Darwin with 2 officers and stuff like that. And, you know, like, I knew I wasn't going to put that on my mum mob, you know what I mean? Because they have to pay for the old man's funeral and that.
Yep.
And it's, you know, I called them up and no, it's all right, you know, don't worry about it. Then I called Chase up. And Chase is like, what's the go? You know, like, how much is it going to cost? And I was like, oh, brother, I said, you know, like, they said it's going to cost up to, you know, anywhere between 10 to 12 grand. And I shit you not, bro. Within 5 minutes, he had that cash in his hand, heading to the bank to go put it into the prison account for them. Yeah, bro, like $12,000, bro, cash. And, you know, and I said, look, bro, I can't pay you back, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to take me ages, you know?
Yep.
And he's like, you don't owe me fucking anything, you know? He goes, I love you, bro. You're my brother, you know? This is, you know? He goes, yeah, bro, like, you know, there's not that many real cunts like that left, bro, you know?
At all, bro.
Ever, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that are still kicking, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, so it just goes to show how big of a heart he had, man, like, you know?
100%.
You know, to do that, even though he was struggling himself, you know, like mentally and that too.
Yeah,
He had his struggles.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he was doing what I was doing in there, like Danny said, with the other lads when I was getting targeted, and he was doing that for me, you know what I mean? Like, he was the same thing, you know? Yeah. But he always supported me, you know, and he always encouraged me to do what I was doing in prison on the outside. And when I got out too, the same thing, you know? He always sent me maddest messages of love and support, and just tell me to keep kicking goals and doing. And he's like, if you ever get famous, bro, I'm coming with you, you know? We're gonna start a clothing label together, and yeah, bro. He's a little bit of an entrepreneur, bro.
Yeah,
it was too funny, man. Yeah.
Nah, awesome, bro.
I think what sums brothers like Shannon and Chase up is a simple phrase. No one will ever know the violence it took to become this kind.
Yeah, the old famous quote, eh?
Yeah.
I learned that one from you, Denny.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's powerful, bro. You know, if you put it into proper context, it's fucking powerful, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
We appreciate you jumping on, brother. Thank you very much. And we'll catch you on the flip side, bro. Again, thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Danny.
And,
no worry, brother.
Enjoy yourself, Shannon, while you're there, eh, brother? I know it's the first time, so I hope you have a good time, bro.
Yeah, easy as.
Thank you, bro. Cheers.
When you're ready, man, come down to Adelaide, eh? I told you, room's there for you, man. And it sounds like you've got a few people down here that want to see you, like Red Star and that. So it's only up the road. Yeah, that's it. You know, big shout out to Simon there at Red Star Training Centre and Jim. Yeah, like he's said I can go down there and do a seminar there.
Yeah, mad.
Yeah. So you know they'll be mad as. So it's in the process, like it's in the plans. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Just we're in there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Danny, brother. We'll catch up soon, bro.
Easy, man.
So, how was that, bro? I haven't heard a bit of, real talk from Danny.
Nah, it's always good, you know, like hearing real talk from anybody really, and especially coming from him, you know, because how much he helped me while I was in jail.
Yep.
And even when I got out, bro, you know, how he could still continue to help and do some mad things, you know, like, yeah. And always keep in contact, you know, like.
Yeah. He's a real one, isn't he? Like,
yeah.
He really is, bro, you know, just even the amount of shit he's done for me, bro, you know, just advice and you know, just that fucking shoulder to cry on, in other words, you know, when I've needed it. And he's just, him and George, like, you know, fuck me, George doesn't go Jordan Lockby doesn't go unheard whatsoever, bro, because he's just he's the one that really fucking knows in my eyes, you know, he's something about George, bro. I just, but yeah. But anyway, bro, let's move on to, let's move on to what you're doing today, bro. You know, obviously you're climbing that ladder pretty quick, bro. You know, you're getting your face out and about. Talk us through what your future aspirations are, and we'll start off what you're up to now, and yeah, what you sort of visualize for your future, bro.
Yeah. So what I'm up to now is just basically filming content. Obviously, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, making reels. Try to do real talk reels about obviously the downfalls of prison, drugs, gangs, stuff like that, and how it could affect your life in the long run, and just even if you are hit rock bottom and you're struggling, that it's not impossible to get out of that.
Yeah.
You can do it yourself, you know what I mean? Like I'm living proof. Brother Jeffrey Morgan there in Sydney's living proof, who's like one of my idols and inspirations. Like I love what he does, and
Likewise, bro. Shout out Morgs. Morgs was actually he was on season 1 as well, bro. Shared his story. Got a pretty hectic story, old Morgs. Like, he's been through a lot more than what I have. That's for sure. Yeah, he was a real cream, bro. Wasn't he?
Bro, 100. And I linked up with him. He reached out to me one time, and me and him got to chatting and talking, and then eventually I signed up to his life coaching program that he runs.
Yep.
Yeah. So every weekend, man, it's unreal. Like, it's funny because when I was in jail, like, I absolutely hated reading, and one of the brothers, when I was down the back cells, 23-hour lockdown, no TV, no radio, nothing.
Yep.
So I was just, I was twiddling my thumbs, looking at the ceiling, and then one of the brothers come down and passed the book through the latch, and it was a book on Buddhism, so Zen, mindfulness and Buddhism, So I said, eventually, like, long story short, I read every single book in the prison on all those things, And then when I got out and met Morgs and that, and I started watching his videos and reels and stuff like that, when he linked up with me and we started chatting, and then I got into this course and how just the way he, like, coaches those courses.
Yeah.
Boom, it was like I was in jail, Like, I was like, wow. Like, as soon as I read that book, that's what I knew what I had to do in order to not let these officers get to me, or these prisoners, or and until eventually, like, I could just walk through any. Brother, I was walking in, like, there was big like brawls and that happened inside some of the blocks and that.
Yep.
And it got to the point where, like, everyone else is like boogieing, taking off, and bro, like, if I needed to get to the other end or tomorrow, I'd just walk straight through it, like, it didn't even faze me, man. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Yeah, it's just from like I said, just coaching and training yourself, like how it works, your mind and stuff like that.
And he's fucking good at it, Morgs.
He's amazing, bro. Like, I absolutely love it, man. Like, and I'm catching up. I just left him in Sydney just the other day, and today actually, to come here. But I'm flying back tomorrow, and we're going to catch up again and do a bit of stuff together. Yeah,
awesome, bro. Now, I've got a question. Like, obviously, you're both got an Aboriginal background and whatnot. Do you feel that you connect with him in that way? Because of your culture background and stuff too. Like,
yeah, well, 100%, man. Like, it's unreal too, because a lot of the content, like, it's getting shared and that by, like, Aboriginals all over. Like, like I said, every single state and territory, there's been Indigenous people that shared my stuff and reaching out to me and messaging me and asking for advice and help and stuff. You know what I mean? So, and if I go to this place or that place, like this trip, it was Sydney, Gold Coast, back to Sydney, to Perth, and then back to Alice Springs. You know what I mean? Like, and all of us just catching up with all people like you, Morgs, other Indigenous influencers, like the brother Shannon over there, Uncle Shannon, and we're just all gonna, like, link up. Like, I'm trying to, like, get people in every state, and we all link up and get together and raise this awareness together and help each other. Try and help other people. Try to help other people see it how we see it. And
it is. It's a very, very very powerful idea too, bro. It's, and a lot of shit will come. Good shit will come from it, I believe. Like, definitely, bro. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing where you go with this, bro. Like clearly I've fucking, met you pretty much, not long after you've sort of out of jail and whatnot, and I just feel blessed, bro, to, have you fly up here and do this. We've done a bunch of videos and shit today, and good to finally catch up and link up in person. It's good, bro. And I see you going a long way. I really do, bro. I'll say that to anyone without you in the room. You're definitely fucking doing good things,
Yeah, and like I said, it hasn't gone unnoticed too. Like I got some good people like yourself, Danny, Morgs, you know, like even, you know, a couple of young rappers, Indigenous rappers and that, and hip hop artists and that from WA, like Izza and all that, you know. And then I got young brother and that down there too in New South Wales, and Patrick, like heaps of people, bro.
Yep.
Like think people that I never even thought in a million years would ever reach out to me, you know, but and enjoy and love the stuff that I'm doing and the direction I'm heading. And yeah, that's just where it's got to be. That's the direction everyone needs to start heading, especially our people, our mob, you know. And,
100%, bro.
Start kicking goals, bro. You know, that's what it's about, bro.
Yeah.
You know, living your life, you know, without any drama-free life's the best life, bro. I'm telling you.
Yeah, 100%.
100%, bro.
Fucking, you know, it's awesome, bro. On that note, we'll bring it to an end shortly, brother. But, you know, as far as your socials and shit, give us a shout-out on where people can find you.
Yeah. So you can just find me on Instagram, you know, just my name, like obviously.
Yeah.
Shannon Althouse, you know. TikTok the same, and Facebook, you know what I mean. So so all three of those, just under my name, you know, just type it straight in. Ball will just pop straight up.
All your links will be in the description for these for this podcast anyway, bro. But give us some hardcore advice, bro, for you know, somebody, you know, that may be suffering, you know, just like Chase was, on the drugs. You know, what's some advice you can throw out there good advice for somebody walking that road?
You know, it's all about not making excuses, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's hard, but, like, if you're going to say you want change or if you want to do change, you know, you need to actually get up and do it. You know, listen to the people that are telling you and helping you and willing to help you as well, and don't just ignore their advice. You know, like, if it's rehab that you need, go to rehab. Stick it out the 3 months. Don't just do it and then think, oh, it's not working. Like, to be honest, like 3 months is nothing, you know what I mean? Like, it's a beginning and a start, but it took me nearly 2 years, probably just over 2 years before like I stopped the addiction side of things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Before I even stopped craving it.
Yep.
So yeah, but when you get to past that point, like, it's like next level unreal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
I vouch for you there too, bro, 100%, because, you know, I'm the same, brother. I know that feeling of when you're past it. It's a very, very, very good feeling, that's for sure. Like, you know, when you can look back on it, back on that life or that addiction that you had or whatever it is, whatever that shitty thing was, you know, in your past, when you can look back on it and fucking, in other words, laugh at it, you know, you've beat it, you know, you're on top of the world. So
yeah, 100%.
I appreciate you coming on, bro. I appreciate everything. You coming up here and shit, bro. It's been an absolute honour, my brother.
No worries, brother.
And, that's episode 10, bro, with the man, Shannon Althouse, not Althouse.
Yeah.
We'll get there one day, brother. I appreciate it, bro. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thank you to Danny. And while I'm on that note, I'll just give a shout-out to the sponsors. We've got the brother Danny and Jordan with Inside Out Coaching down there in Adelaide. We've got Dan Eldridge with Eiffel Drive Club, Benny Wolf with Wolf's Painting, and last but not least, Bo Woods with the Goods Clothing Co. Without you guys, this podcast wouldn't be happening, so I'm very, very grateful to have you on board. But we'll leave you there, guys. Episode 10. Let's go.